This little tablet is probably one of my most treasured pieces of tech. I use it multiple times a day for a variety of different purposes, and in this video I'm going to showcase them all. I'll tell you about the hat too. So even after all the rumours, we didn't get an iPad mini 7 this year, did we? And you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think it means Apple is working on an even bigger update for this much loved little tablet for next year, and I'm really excited to see what they come up with. And let's be honest, even though this was released over 3 years ago, which makes it practically geriatric in tech terms, there's plenty of life in the old dog yet. And in this video, I'm going to reveal 9 everyday ways that I use my iPad mini, as well as a bonus one that you probably didn't know about. First up, Sidecar. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem and using a Mac computer alongside your iPad, you can use your iPad as a second display using this feature. To do this in Sonoma, you just open up the control center, go to screen mirroring, and then select your iPad. Your iPad screen will then switch over as if it's a second monitor, and you can move your mouse and other windows over to it as you like. If you don't need this functionality, you can just tell your OS to recognize your connected mouse and keyboard, so that if you move your mouse over to the edge of the screen, it'll show up magically on your iPad, and you can control your iPad apps without needing to reconnect it separately. It's really cool, and it works pretty flawlessly without any cables involved. So I do like to use my iPad mini as a portable gaming device. In fact, it's also the perfect size for this sort of thing. I've started using Apple Arcade lately, so it's just a case of connecting a Bluetooth controller, and then I can happily have a little bit of micro gaming when I'm ready for a little break. Now, this will run the battery down quite a bit, so I would recommend picking up some kind of charging device, whether it's a big old battery pack which will charge your iPad mini several times over, or you can go the whole hog and rock this wireless charging setup from Pitaka. This one comes with a funky little stand too, which lets you snap your iPad to it and charge wirelessly while you're working or gaming. There's a wireless spot down the bottom too for your phone or headphones or whatever you like to charge at the same time. Next up, Notes. So since going paperless with my note-taking about 3 years ago, I've tried 1,000,001 different note-taking apps for iPad, but the one I always come back to is GoodNotes, which, like the iPad mini, is now on its 6th generation, and it's recently switched to a bit of a controversial subscription model. It is nonetheless the best app for this kind of use in my opinion, mainly because it supports audio recording. So if you're a student, you can be making notes whilst in a lecture and then replay everything at a later date, and the recording will snap to your notes taken at the time. I really wish I had one of these when I was at university, all those many decades ago. In my case, I use this feature for making notes during work meetings and in any coaching sessions, and it just makes reviewing everything super simple. It also does a really good job of converting handwriting to text, even my awful, horrible scribbles. The other great thing about using iPad mini as a digital note taker is that it's not too conspicuous. If you whip it out during an in-person meeting, you just don't get that awkward, yes, I'm taking notes on an iPad, that you get if you unveil something like the massive 12.9-inch iPad Pro. If you're not up for using GoodNotes, Apple's own Notes app has come on leaps and bounds in the last few years, and it started integrating all kinds of interesting features. I really like that whole swipe up from the bottom hand corner to quickly start a new note. It's a really clean way of the iPad's OS just getting out of its own way and giving you what you need with as little friction as possible when you need to take a note. Now, in order to do this, you will need an Apple Pencil. This is the 2nd generation model, which charges magnetically on the side of the iPad mini. There's something about the aesthetic of this form factor and the fact that the pencil is just the right size for the shape of this iPad that really pleases me when I see them sat there together. And I would recommend putting a paper-like screen protector on there. That's a total no-brainer for me on any iPad. Using an Apple Pencil on a glass screen just feels bizarre, and I think the paper-like screen protector just gives it a bit of extra resistance whilst mattifying the screen slightly to minimize reflections. Now obviously it doesn't feel like paper, but trust me, it feels way better than slipping around on the glass when you're drawing or writing. And no, this 2nd generation of paper-like screen protectors doesn't ruin your pencil tips, contrary to popular belief. I've been using this one for years now and I've had no problems. If you've been following this channel for a while now, you'll know I'm a fan of Anker. They're really well known for their charging tech, from tiny little magnetic wireless chargers that snap onto your iPhone, all the way through to these massive boxes that'll power a camper van or an entire home even. But what is my favourite Anker product? Well, it's got to be this charging cube. I use it every single day to charge my watch, AirPods, and phone before going to sleep. And because it's all MagSafe compatible, it lets me pop my phone on and take advantage of iPhone's new standby mode, or just watch some content while I'm lying in bed. Anker are running a special Christmas sale where you can get up to 40% off their products. Now, if you're looking for the perfect gift for that person who makes you feel electric, whether it's one of these nano power banks for the new USB-C iPhones or their 13-in-1 desktop docking station, head over to my link in the description for all the best discount codes, and a big thanks to Anker for sponsoring this week's video. What next? Let's talk about consuming stuff. So the iPad mini is just one of those great sizes where you can wander around with it one-handed or even in the pocket, and it just feels like nothing. Whether that's being able to watch a film on one of those really cramped airline tray tables or catch up with your YouTube feed when you're having lunch, it really lends itself well towards being this awesome little consumption device. Now, if you pair it with a good pair of headphones, you're going to get all the benefits of things like spatial audio and Dolby Atmos, which is surprisingly immersive even on this smaller screen. And next up is a bit of a use case that is quite specific to me as a YouTuber, but if you have to regularly give presentations online or any kind of product demos, this might be a use case you've not thought about before, and that's using your iPad as a teleprompter. Now, you can spend loads of money on these. FYI, I've treated myself to Elgato's new prompter, which is supposed to arrive any day now. Do subscribe, by the way, if you want to know what I think about it when it turns up. The one I use at the moment is a pretty basic prompter that I found on Amazon by a company called DesView. This lets me control the speed of the text via this little remote control, and then I don't ever forget a thing when I'm making these videos. It works really well, and the tiny size of the iPad mini means you're not going to see your eyes moving side to side like they would if you were using a bigger display on one of the larger iPads. Pro tip for those who are running presentations at work: just download a teleprompter app to your iPad that will respond to your voice, and it'll help you get through those presentations nice and easily without needing to check your notes all the time. And the next couple of uses are to do with productivity, and I know some people like having a physical to-do list or a calendar on their desk, but I'm all about that paperless life these days. My thinking on this is that whether you've got a to-do list or a calendar that needs your attention, it needs to be something that you can see all the time. So my iPad mini tends to be my always visible to-do list to help me get stuff done, and then also a calendar viewer when I need to keep an eye on my schedule. Again, it's flexible enough that I can have one device that does both of those things without needing to take up any extra desk space with physical versions. So in my work focus mode, I have it set up so that I've got a massive to-do widget and a calendar view on one screen with no distractions from any other apps. And then I just use that mouse keyboard control feature that I covered earlier if I need to quickly add something to either app. Simples. On a connected note, another thing this iPad is great for is stuff like controlling home automation. So for example, in this room, there are a few lights behind me, which are linked to an automation called YouTube. And if I want, I can just get Google Home to run that for me on my iPad, or hit this button here and all my lights switch on or off nicely, and I'm ready to start recording. Back to consuming stuff, and again, this is one of those use cases that really only makes sense with the specific size of the iPad mini, mainly because unlike every other single iPad, you can easily hold it in one hand, and that's reading. It's exactly the same size as a standard book, and whether it's magazines or Kindle books, you can use it to get lost in some content and also use your Apple Pencil to highlight sections for referencing at a later date. One big downside here is that the iPad mini screen isn't mega bright, so you're probably going to struggle to take this away somewhere sunny and read it outside, but for indoor use, it's absolutely fine. So there's 9 ways. I said I'd mention a bonus one, which I can't show because I don't own an Apple TV. I know, shock horror. But if you do have one, and you've also got an iPad mini, you can use it as a webcam for things like Zoom calls, and using this continuity camera feature basically makes it into a wireless webcam. It's not super high quality, but it is one of those funny little hidden features, which I think is worth a mention, especially around this time of year when you might want to have a catch up with family or friends using your TV rather than a tiny phone screen. But before we go, I know I'm wearing a hat, which I don't normally do. It's a bit embarrassing really. You see, I shaved my head this morning and then instantly regretted it because it's really, really cold here at the moment. So this is me keeping my big round head happy. I hope it's not been too distracting. If you want to see my wish list for what I think Apple need to do to make the iPad mini absolutely perfect for the 7th generation release, you're going to want to watch this video here, where for some reason I'm half whispering all the way through. Sorry about that. See you next time.